Jim, this question for the late night drive-thru comes from John Means in Gadsden, Alabama.
Gadsden, Alabama, baby.
Jim, what's your opinion of Bobby Roode? I personally feel the man has it all. I definitely could see him at the top. Not sure if Vince pays any attention or not, but they have something from the incredible entrance to his in-ring ability to his promo work. I've been watching wrestling since around 1979, and I really think that man could have made it big in any era. He reminds me of so many that I grew up watching. I love listening to all your shows and all the shows under the 605 umbrella. So, Jim, what do you think of Bobby Roode?
Well, I hate to fucking answer this question this way, but it's going to be boring because I agree with everything the guy just said. Now, I've always been a fan of Bobby Roode's, and I remember when I first told Tom Pritchard that I was going to be going to TNA, he said, oh, yeah, they got some good talent down there. And one guy that he had already seen and already had plugged back when he was involved in the early versions of developmental with WWE was Bobby Roode. And I wasn't surprised that they didn't pick up on a guy because, they've let a lot of people slip through their fingers. But then when I saw him in person, I was fucking flabbergasted. And he and Storm were a fucking incredible team. But Bobby on his own, it's hard to describe to somebody who has not been in wrestling or involved with wrestling training or scouting talent or whatever. But when you see him, you know he's good just by the way he moves around the ring. His timing was impeccable. His ring positioning, he was always in the right place, the right time. He cut a pretty good promo, and it's gotten better over the years. That may have been a weaker spot than his work when I first saw him, but that's been rectified. I couldn't believe that the WWE didn't steal him, years ago when he first became when a contract came up for renewal or whatever. I couldn't believe he wasn't there 7-8 years ago is what I'm trying to say. He reminds me of Arn Anderson in that everything that he does is precise. There's not a lot of wasted motion. Everything is safe. It's done, once again, just smooth. He's so fucking smooth, but he's not smooth where he looks phony. He's smooth where it would be a pleasure to work with him if you're smart to the business and know what to look for in a good worker. He doesn't do goddamn, 14 dives or flips or whatever, so he may not be some people's cup of tea. But as far as if you were a veteran worker in the wrestling business and you had to look at guys that you might work with, he would be one of the first ones at the top of your list because you could instantly tell he knows what he's doing. He's not going to hurt me or himself. It's going to be good. Things are going to come off without a hitch. He's smooth. He's a fucking pro. And I can't imagine why it took him that long to get him up there because he was way better than TNA. When I was still in TNA, he was way too good to be in TNA. And that was a while back.
Do you agree with this cult of Cornette members' assessment that Bobby Roode would have fit in to any of the territories in the past? Can you see him working for Jim Crockett Promotions or for Mid-South Wrestling?
Yes, easily. I think he would have been, at first, they probably would have used him as a baby face because he does have a nice looking face. But once that he got over and got groomed and got experience, he would have been a brilliant heel in just about any fucking territory because he knew how to get the baby faces over and still stay over himself. Like I said, he knew how to get the shit done. He's a good leader. I think he could have worked in any territory except maybe the 80s WWF where, he wasn't 300 pounds and, a big jacked up bodybuilder, but any other territory, I'm sure they would have been happy to have a guy who can work like that.
So I'm sure you're happy about his recent success with NXT.
Well, oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. I can't believe it took him this long. And he needs to be on the main roster. If they'd put him on the main roster and just make his job, if they were worried about his age at this point, that we don't want to start. Of course, Nick Bockwinkel was the AWA champion when he was in his early 50s, but I digress. If they were worried about starting to push a guy that's in his late 30s, I guess now Bobby probably is, then they should just pay him, and they ought to pay him more than they're paying some of these other motherfuckers because he'd be earning it. They ought to pay him to be on the main roster and to go around the horn with everybody that they bring up to the main roster from NXT or wherever for the first 3 or 4 months and let him work with them so that they will be eased into the situation and they don't just freak out and fucking have a nervous breakdown. Because as long as you would just close your fucking ears or close your mouth and open your ears and just listen to what Bobby Roode would tell you, he could have a match with anybody, and it would make them look a lot better than they do now when they put young guys against young guys. So when I saw it one time I was over at Boland's. He was, for whatever reason, he still tapes these programs, and he's like, watch this. And it was, I don't even want to call him by his names, but it was one of the tag teams. This was a couple years ago, but it was one of the tag teams that was working with one of the other tag teams. And the guy is sitting there, and he's trying to get a hold on this guy that he's working with, and he can't get the fucking hold. He has something. It's not a hold. I don't know what the fuck it was. And it was so bad that it was one of those live shows. The camera just cut to a shot of the fucking bleachers for like 8 full seconds. Long enough so you knew it wasn't a bad switch. And I'm thinking there's going to be a run-in. But instead, no, they went back to the match. And when they went back to the match, the guy finally had the hold. And I said, I guarantee you Vince McMahon is screaming, this motherfucker, he don't even have a fucking hold. Just shoot anything else. Right? If the guy couldn't get the hold on Bobby Roode would be able to put himself in the fucking hold and nobody would have known the difference. Things like that you can't teach, that comes from experience. They ought to have guys like that on the main roster, not just in NXT working with them, but on the main roster working with these guys. So when they send them up, instead of taking a guy that's just come from NXT and putting him against a guy that came from NXT 3 weeks ago, put them in with veterans when they're in the big building in front of 12,000 people for the first fucking time or whatever. So that, in case there's a meltdown, you got a fucking experienced guy that can put shit back on the right fucking course. That's just my opinion. But Bobby Roode, I love me some Bobby Roode. Yes, I do.